And also these roles are changing. They're all amazing, but also we want to be perfect. And it's the beginning of thinking about who is it and what is a woman, what is motherhood, what is her role. So Sipping Thoughts in partnership with Orient Square, we are presenting Woman 2030, which is panel discussions with Gen Z. We wanted to really understand what are the thoughts of the next generation and also how are they different from ours. So it's a 4-part series that we're doing in April and May 2022. And today we're focused on the theme of motherhood. How will the woman of 2030 be as a mother, her rights and her choices? This is a burning topic as we see what is going on around the world. On center stage is the topic of Roe versus Wade, in which legal rights are being challenged. Just this week, a grandmother sued her son and daughter-in-law for not wanting to have kids. Then we have the question of surrogacy, adoption, and whether or not who determines our choice to be a mother. Let's delve into many of these questions and get the views of our judges and of Gen Z. I'd like to now introduce Nitin Dhawan, who's the founder of Orient Square, to share his vision about this beautiful project.
Thank you so much, Sukriti. So at Orient Square, we are promoting the WONG movement. WONG stands for Voice of the New Generation. And the objective of the WONG movement is to accelerate the adoption of sustainability by the global community. So we are promoting all aspects of sustainable development goal. And the way we go about doing this is by building a deeper understanding and awareness about global social issues amongst the new generation, and then giving them a platform and producing platforms where they can try and influence the society with their understanding. And this is one such platform for us. So today's theme, motherhood, is actually the most challenging theme for us, because there are just too many stakeholders, there are too many diverse views. We look forward to a great session today. And today, Wongsters will also be covering the event through live tweeting. And Wongsters are requested to watch out for instructions on their groups. Starting now, there will be a contest every 7 minutes. And the best tweeter will be awarded with an Amazon gift certificate. Thank you. Over to Sukriti.
Awesome, Nitin. So excited. So today the moderation is being done by myself. We've got Payal Chawla, who's the renowned founder of Just Contract Us, an all-woman law service firm, and Nishtha Anand, who's a seasoned professional and author of the bestseller, Awakening the Rainmaker. With the both of them, we're going to gain an understanding of what does it mean to think about motherhood, especially as we are talking about 2030. We're also going to be choosing 2 students from this round to go to our final round, which is on May 28th, in which the topic will be all-encompassing, which is Woman in 2030. A little bit more about Payal, because I'm going to throw the first question to her. She's been named one of the thinkers to watch out for by Forbes India. She served at the Judicial Commission headed by the Honorable Justice Usha Mehra in the Nirbhaya rape tragedy, and her life and work were captured in the form of a short biopic by Tapasya Productions, which has won accolades at many different film festivals, even though she says her son has done it, but she was also one of the first ones that made sure that now it is all over India that the child can take the mother's last name. So a very warm welcome, Payal. We're very excited to have you with us. And I'm going to throw the first question to you. So this is the question that possibly everybody else. Let's talk about the motherhood penalty. How real is it? And how does it affect not only our career choices, but also our desire to be a
mother? Thank you, Sukriti, and thank you for that very kind introduction. But well, motherhood can be a penalty. I don't see it that way. But the way I'd like to look at motherhood is responsibility. And responsibility, when you use the word responsibility, it carries with it choice. So in order to be a responsible and happy mother, that choice has to be yours when you want to become a mother. And all of the recent debates, and remember we're in 2022, today, the issue of our own bodily autonomy at so many levels is being called into question. Like you rightly mentioned, Roe v. Wade is at the heels of being overturned. We have a split verdict from the Delhi High Court right now on marital rape. The other case that you pointed out about in-laws suing their daughter-in-law and son for wanting to be grandparents. So at the end of the day, look, in order for a mother to be a responsible mother and to bring up children that be able to exercise choices in the world, you must first have that right to exercise a choice, whether you want to be a mother or not.
Very well said. And I think this question of choice, and we'll keep coming back to that. I'm going to come to Nishtha. She's a best-selling author. She's written Awakening the Rainmaker. She's a TEDx speaker, and she's a LinkedIn top voice. So I'm going to ask you this. There's a lot of wisdom in our culture and our tradition, but a lot of women are subjected to this pressure. Like we talked about this case that's coming on for their in-laws, society in general, that, that if you get married, you need to become a mother, or you need to have a second child, or you need to have a first child. Do you think that such influence is even wise during these times, and do you see it changing?
So I do see a little bit of change, Sukriti, here, especially, I mean, we are doing a panel with all these students here. I think what helps is that early education by schools can somewhere help in both boys and girls making more proactive choices as they grow up. Like, this is what I've focused in the book also. When I start with, it's not just about making choices later on. The confidence has to be sowed in your early years. Only then can you be confident in making those choices. If as children itself, you see your mothers playing a very submissive role, or you're given those gendered signs from an early age, it will be very tough for you to be able to make, assertive choices as you grow up, or for you to choose a career which is not in line with what the society expects of you. And the sad reality is that the society still expects women to be caregivers, to be mothers, to be more docile. And they expect men to be like the breadwinners or having the last word on decisions and those sort of things. And these realities can only change when we liberate both men and women, both boys and girls. There are boys today who may want to go for careers which are less masculine, so to say, like performance arts or becoming a chef, or women who may choose that, okay, it's my body, and I let's say at a later point I want to focus on my career to start with, and I don't want to start a family right now, or maybe I want to go through the alternate route of surrogacy, adoption, all those things, right? But the confidence to exercise this choice can only come when we liberate our children, because that's the age when their personality is really getting formed up. So it's very important that as parents, as teachers, as responsible citizens, like this, doing this panel discussion, for instance, or having your teachers to talk about these things, or as students just being part, reading those sort of material that can really shape your personality and your thinking, so that it gives you the confidence to make that informed choice. So that's very important.
Very nice, this informed choice. And I'm going to ask you one last question, both of you, before I move on to the students. So I am in all these mothers groups, and I've been in 2 schools, and I will say these are school groups, and I still called it a mother group, because it seems that 90% of the people, when we talk about, are still mothers that are joining these groups. So when we think about the roles and the responsibility, and specifically when we say motherhood, we don't talk so much about fatherhood. What is your view on this? Both of you, I'd like to hear from Payal first and Nishtha, and then we'll go on to the students.
Yeah, so like Nishtha rightly said, I think there's an unreal burden, Sukriti, on women, because not only, of course, the womb is ours, so we are nurturing the initial, by the very fact that a woman feeds her child, it's just assumed that every other responsibility goes to the mother, and then lifelong. There is the, and that I have spoken on your platform about, the problem of the tetrad, what I call the tetrad hex, when it's coming at you from 4 directions. So there is an unreal burden, and the difficulty is that it's the same fathers who want no responsibility for bringing up children in the day-to-day aspect of it, are the ones wanting to decide how body autonomy for a woman has to be dealt with. So they're the ones that are talking today about pro-choice versus, woman's right to her own body. But there is an unreal burden on women, and therefore you are only going to find mothers on your on the various groups. And the fatherhood is still, that it's not to say that men aren't involved enough, but it's a choice. Even women that are working today, do we have the luxury to say that we are going to only be part-time mothers? Men have that luxury, we just simply don't.
Very true, very true. Your thoughts, Nishtha?
So I totally resonate with what Payal said, especially the last statement that, fathers have that luxury, and women, even when they're working professionals, they just can't afford that luxury. It's assumed that they will learn how to multitask. Now, getting back to what you said, Sukriti, so my kid also just started pre-nursery, and I experienced that firsthand. That when I reached, a WhatsApp group was created, and the school authorities were the ones who only added the mothers, despite they having the numbers of fathers as well. And I think this is where that proactiveness needs to come in. Unless we question the status quo, things will not correct. People just assume कि चलता आ रहा है तो चलता रहेगा. So I was the one who pointed it out that, okay, you have my husband's number as well. He's a parent too. Like I often say this, it creates two, it takes two to create a baby, and it takes two to raise a baby. So as a spouse, like again, going either way, and because the caregiving responsibilities are disproportionately on a mother, so I'll start with the mothers. It's to the mothers or the women first need to question the status quo. Like beyond the biology of it, once the child is out, you're right that the feeding responsibility is fine, because when the child is in that breastfeeding stage, only I can do that. But the other aspects of bringing up a child need to be shared equally. The woman has just, shot out a baby out of her body. Rest of it you can do, like changing diapers, taking part in all the other things, and be part of that caregiving responsibilities from day one. And if the man is not doing it, you need to be assertive enough to command that from your family, from your spouse. Unless you ask for it, you wouldn't get it. So be assertive and start questioning things around you. That's one. And another important thing is, at least when it comes to the corporate scheme of things, many organizations are realizing it. Now they call it parental leave. There is paternity leave for men also, which ranges from, 6 weeks to 12 weeks, like full-blown 6 months are also given by some organizations. So if your spouse is part of such an organization, make sure that he's availing that leave. Because unless you break the caregiving model from day one, you will get stuck in it for lifelong. So start making those changes. You sort of need to be the change you want to see in the world, and set that example for parents around you. So start questioning those things.
Nicely said. And so now we're going to talk to the change makers. These are the next generation, and let's hear this view. So Lavanya, the first question to you. He's a 12th grader from Bhavan Vidyalaya in Panchkula, and he's someone who's passionate about equality, music, and philosophy. So Lavanya, your question is, if your wife doesn't want to become a mother, but you and also your parents really want a child, what will be your recourse?
Now, this situation will most likely not occur because I would reason it out before entering into a legal agreement with my partner. But on the off chance it does occur, I would not consider my parents say in this matter because it's much too personal. And I would try to reason with my partner. For example, asking her or him that if the problem was with pregnancy or the responsibility. Now, if the problem was with avoiding the complications of pregnancy, I would suggest adoption. And if the problem was responsibility, I would check my financial status to see if I can hire a caretaker for the child, and would try to take on most of the responsibilities for the child, since in the first place I was the one who wanted the child. And I would also consider surrogacy. if that would be okay with my partner.
Okay, very well said, Lavanya. And I'm going to take Payal's view from the legal recourse because this is a big, big issue before I take the rebuttal from Janvi. Go ahead, Payal, because this does happen quite a bit.
I'm in complete agreement with what Lavanya said, but I do have a question for Lavanya. What if, despite the fact that you say that I'll take on the full responsibility, I'll look after the finances, your partner was to still say no? Do you then believe that the woman's right to her bodily autonomy should be taken away? That she should not be able to exercise her right of abortion?
Of course not. And once again, I said this will probably not happen because I would reason it out before entering into a legal agreement with my partner.
Suppose your partner violates the agreement later.
Or changes their mind because life changes.
Well, if I was motivated enough to enter into this agreement, I'm pretty sure if they decide to change their mind, I can adjust according to their needs.
Okay.
And he also mentioned surrogacy somewhere. So would that be okay for him to demand the egg?
Again, demanding and requesting are two different things. And the point that I do want to make here is that if there is a disagreement and the disagreement becomes big enough, the party should be able to move outside the sphere of marriage. But forcing a point of view on a partner, that would be incorrect. I have no quarrel with what Lavanya has said at all, and I respect his views entirely. The issue about fathers wanting to exercise and demanding that if the partner doesn't, should she then not be able to abort the fetus versus them opting out of the marriage? And this is a concept which is just, it's hard for people to understand and grasp. What if I, as a man, want the child?
No, it's a big option that is, I wouldn't say option, but this is something that is actually coming up because we see this happening around the world where we see couples and some people say, I just don't want children. It has nothing to do with financial responsibility or whatever. I just do not want them. And so what is then the legal stature of the woman in this case? Because some men are saying, well, you know what, I actually want to keep the child. But we'll take Janvi's rebuttal and then come back. Janvi, would love to hear from you on this.
Right. Hello. Lavanya, I would like to ask you, the question mentioned parent and that your parents also really want a child. Suppose you and your partner work everything out and you are in agreement. How do you plan on handling your family side of things?
Well, I would try to convince them to go with our decision. But if they offer any, any resistance, then I would try to distance myself from them because this matter is much too personal for them to be the decision makers.
Wow, very nice. Okay. We're going to move on to the next question. This is to Anushka, who's an 8th grader from Pathway School in Gurgaon. She's passionate about entrepreneurship, feminism, psychology, and writing. So, because I think this leads really up to the question that even Payal was asking, and we'll also take Nishtha's view on this, my body, my choice. So in the context of abortion and surrogacy, I would love to hear, Anushka, your thoughts on this.
Well, I believe my body, my choice is not only applicable when it comes to wearing what I want or looking the way I want. My body, my choice is also valid in the context of abortion and surrogacy because pregnancy is obviously not easy on women. It can change a woman's body so much. Of course, it is a beautiful thing, but it also constitutes a lot of health risks for a woman. So ultimately, if it's my body facing the consequences, it should be my decision whether or not to risk my body. And a lot of people will say that what if it's selfish? I believe it's not at all selfish, because women have always been taught to put others first. But if I am looking out for myself and my health first before that of an unborn baby, it's not wrong and it's completely not self-seeking.
Nicely said. Very well put. I'd like to hear, Nishtha, your comments on this.
So, very well said, Anushka. And you're right, my body, my choice. But I would say it's easier said than done, because there are so many other factors which play around, around us when it comes to especially embracing parenthood, and especially for a woman, because as Anushka rightly said, it's a lot to do with a woman's body and what all her body goes through. And another thing, Sukriti, is why this motto has become all the more important today, because we have girls who are financially independent now. They are very well educated. Parents are taking equal interest in their education, in their career prospects. So they're no longer just, they're no longer dependent on their spouses for the finances, and they're equally ambitious when it comes to their careers. And I think that is where our body clocks and our career clocks are sort of inversely proportional. And that is really bringing in this discussion to the forefront a lot. So it's great to see that we are starting this discussion at a very young age. Like kids of this age usually don't even know of such things. So at least starting the dialogue early helps, and helps kids as they grow into young adults take more informed choices. And the good news is that even the organizations are, taking an active step when it comes to these things. There are organizations through their insurance policies who are funding things like freezing eggs, surrogacy, all the IVFs, all these procedures are now covered in people's insurance policies as well. Because it's easy to talk about surrogacy or freezing your eggs, or going through IVFs, but people don't realize that it comes with a very heavy cost. Like, this is a good financial burden. So talking about this early on, being educated on different aspects of it, can really help you make a better choice. Like, my body, my choice, and that choice can be more empowering if you know about these things early on.
Very nicely said. I'm also going to take Payal's view on this, because Payal, you and I also had a very interesting discussion on this on Priyanka Chopra. When she decided to use a surrogate, a lot of people questioned, why didn't she have the baby herself? And also, I want to understand from a legal point of view, this my body, my choice, because it's really come under a lot of legal scrutiny. Because is it my body, and do I have the choice?
Okay, so just a quick comment first. So there are, of course, with this, with bodily autonomy, there are a whole set of arguments, body changing, medical hazard, financial constraints. But for me, each of these are equally important. But for me, the top issue will always be choice. And I never want to deviate from that. There should be, I should have the autonomy to decide what I wish to do with my body without having to give any explanations. They have a medical need. I don't want to have a child for XYZ reason. And this is why I think Priyanka Chopra is so important to this conversation. She hasn't put out any reason as to why she chose surrogacy. She could afford it, and she chooses it. And let me say, it's as flippant for a moment, but at least it's as flippant for a moment, just to say that she wanted that her body shouldn't change, her figure shouldn't be ruined because of the business that she is in. She hasn't said that. I'm just saying that, assume that was the reason. I see absolutely no problem with that. And why not? Choose surrogacy because that's a choice. A woman should have that much agency to be able to say that I wish to have a surrogate to have a baby without assigning any reasons whatsoever.
No, nicely. I think this question of choice, and our choice should be very free. I'll take the rebuttal from Radhika. Radhika, go ahead.
Anushka, my question is, I would like to say that when you opt for surrogacy or adoption, a lot of people in society always says and questions that you don't
don't have that biological connect with the child, is there any, is there a lack of connection with the child because you're not the biological parent? So what do you feel and what would you say to such people?
So I can answer. I had my kids through surrogacy. I do not feel that there is any emotional non-connect that happens, because when those babies are given to you, honestly, whether you had them in your womb, whether you adopted them, whether you did them to your surrogate, I think that desire for motherhood and that love, it just encompasses you. I can answer that question from a very first-hand perspective, if that answers it. But yes, I would love to hear Anushka's response to that.
I completely agree with you. It's not that because you didn't give birth to the child, you can't establish an emotional connect with the child. It's about, when you look at the child, if you feel the sort of love and affection for the child, if you feel the willingness that, okay, I can bring this child up and I can do it the right way, and I can dedicate my life to this particular child, that's what matters ultimately. You don't have to have given birth to a child in order to give the same amount of love and affection and bring the child up, and take care of the child and nurture the child. So
very, very nicely said. Now we're going to move to Janvi, who's a 12th grader from Gurukul Global School in Chandigarh. She's an altruist and wishes to give back to society with her sense and purpose. So Janvi, for you, if your partner was infertile, would you consider pregnancy through sperm donation? Also, if you were infertile, would you choose adoption or surrogacy?
Well, first of all, I would like to point out that I find the question itself very interesting because it only focuses on a very heteronormative perspective. As a bi person myself, I could very well have a female partner in the future and be considering those options anyway, regardless of infertility. But
Very nice.
if I were to choose a man, and there was a question of infertility in the relationship, I would definitely want to go ahead with sperm donation or even surrogacy, because I feel my desire to have a biological child, to have someone whom I can connect with on that level, is greater than just wanting to opt out of a relationship because it's a big hassle. Growing up without a sibling, being an only child, and then growing up a bit lonely, that need for a biological connection will always be there.
I'd also like to point out that's excellently said, because we want to also now cover the gender spectrum, because this is an issue that has been raised and it is continuously being raised because single mothers, people that may not form into the man-woman relationship, what about their rights to motherhood? Payal and Nishtha, I'd like to hear both of your views on this, because this is actually touching on the cusp of what the next generation and people are asking.
Sukriti, I think parenthood,
Yes.
because I'd like to use a gender neutral term.
Yes.
And also, just to pick up from the last question, there's an assumption first that biological parents somehow make for better parents. And just to clarify, surrogacy has a biological connect because the egg and the sperm are fused. It's just in outer, you have an outer body in a sense that is used to carry the child. But that in and of itself, there's an assumption that fathers can't be as good parents as mothers, or an adoptive parent cannot be as good a parent as a biological parent, and that's just plain wrong. So I think that anybody who, even parents that don't identify with a particular gender, a non-binary in that sense, there's no reason to assume they won't be as good parents as any biological mother. So clearly, I'm all for.
But does the legal system allow us to do that? Because it is very, very complicated.
Look, at the moment in India, and I can speak for that, 377 has only decriminalized sex between two consenting adults of the same gender. But we unfortunately, same-sex marriages are not recognized in India, and hopefully, with the privacy judgment there is a door open, and that aspect is still being litigated in court. It's a question of time before that too will happen. I'm very hopeful.
Nishtha, your views on this, because this is a big burning issue.
So actually very interesting one. So just talking about the aspect of the gender spectrum, or same gender relationships. Uh, Sadly, the fact of the matter is, Janvi, like with the book, for instance, I've interviewed all these leaders from different fields in India, some of them in those Forbes and Fortune's most powerful lists, like Fortune 500 companies, those sort of things. But the crux of it, what came out was India is still lagging behind when it comes to cisgender men and cisgender women equality. That's what Payal just mentioned, that we are still establishing the cisgender equality bit of things. Gender spectrum bit of things is sadly a long walk, especially in the Indian context. Because as Payal said, that we have just decriminalized the Section 377. We are yet to recognize same gender marriages, for instance. And unless you're like a couple, you cannot really go ahead and do the adoption bit of things. Like women still can, and many have. But when it comes to single men, they face a lot of challenges in the system. So the system is at times biased and throwing challenges not just at women but at men as well. And even organizations, for instance, when they talk about gender equality, they're only focused on the cisgender bit of things currently. There are geographies like America or Europe where the focus has now come on to LGBTQ, ethnicity, racial diversity, and those sort of things, because they have sort of sorted the gender bit of things to start with. So it's going to be a long walk to that gender neutrality spectrum, I would say. But having these conversations, surely opens the door towards that. And to the point on considering surrogacy or sperm donation in case of infertility, it just draws me to the first question which was posted to Lavanya as well. What if your partner is not comfortable with you going through a sperm donation, or you going through a surrogacy? Like, it can go either way. If a woman gets a choice, does the man also get that same choice? If you're in a relationship where the man is infertile and the woman is keen to have a child. So I think these are very tricky sort of situations to navigate for any couple, whatever gender, whatever nature they may be. And here I would just say one thing: it's not like one solution fits all approach. It's to do with what suits you as a couple, and just having that conversation and just knowing in your gut that okay, maybe this is going to work for me.
We'll take also now the rebuttal from Anushka. Anushka, go ahead.
So I completely agree with what Chanvi said. I believe that if my partner was infertile or I would certainly consider pregnancy through sperm donation or surrogacy. I'm personally very, very comfortable with the idea, and I wholeheartedly trust science and all the developments that we've made so far.
So, and we're going to come now to Ridhima, because I think this continues this question, who's from class 12. She's from Bharti Vidya Bhavan. She's passionate about speaking out against social issues such as gender inequality and homophobia. So Ridhima, this question to you. If you were in an unhappy marriage and you had children, they could be young children, preteen, would you avoid considering separation to give your child a more secure and emotionally stronger future? Because a lot of marriages stay together because we feel that that is better for the child. So this question is specifically put towards the context of what do we think is that perfect parenting scenario?
Yes, ma'am. This question made me think quite a lot, because as the vocal feminist child in the family, I thought I would be this super decisive person who would be like, yeah, I leave them. But I've seen unhappy marriages and there are a lot of variables that we have to weigh, right? So we can't just make a decision just based on a single thought. So personally, if we're assuming that this marriage is unhappy and not abusive, I would go for a co-parenting style in which me and my partner's spouse legally separate. However, we can live in the same house or even in different houses, but we would both be actively participating in the life of the child. That way, the child gets to see the healthy relationship between their parents, and nobody is unhappy in this scenario. So,
Fantastic. Nishtha, your comments, and then we'll take Payal's. Nishtha? All right, we'll take Payal's first.
I wholeheartedly agree with what Ridhima has said. And, Sukriti, when I have spoken about this whole concept of partly married.
Yes,
so,
I want you to
yeah.
talk about that because I think that is what maybe the future.
No, I think, post our conversation on partly married, I've given it some thought, and actually it sort of does exist, right? When families separate, you do have, in a situation where both parents are good parents but are unable to get along, you do have this sort of thing where you have one aspect of co-parenting the child. You're then looking at another partner, perhaps for emotional security or, just compatibility, sexual compatibility. You could have just be, in a home sharing space with a third person. So this, we must, think outside the traditional marriage idea for particularly families and people who are not able to derive everything that we're traditionally suited to think that a marriage is supposed to provide for.
No, very well said. And I'm coming back to Nishtha. Let's also talk about single women. Some people don't want to get married, but want to be a mother. So Nishtha, your comments. Nishtha?
Sorry. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So I think you're right. It's to do with the choice, and especially as a woman, you have that. I think it's both a boon and a bane. I would say you just need a sperm, and you're basically the machinery who can make the baby, right? So that's actually sort of a boon if you're a single woman and you want to embrace parenthood. And especially today, if you have the financial means for it, if you have the emotional support, and you have it in you to do that, then yes, go ahead. Whether you want to do it through your body or like Sushmita saying, right? She adopted her first girl when she was hardly 23, 24 years old herself. So this just goes on to show that she had that clarity and that sorted mindset at that younger age to become a mother. So and more recently, if you look at even the tele stars, I just recently saw this Kahani Ghar ki actress who played the mom in Dangal. She also recently adopted a baby girl at the age of what? She must be over her like 45 plus. So if you're not if you cannot make family by traditional means, doesn't mean you don't get to make a family. It is your choice. If you want a family, then go ahead and exercise your choice and make a family which is best suited to your realities. And that's true for both men and women.
Awesome. Lavanya, what are your thoughts on this?
Ma'am, now Ridhima mentioned that the question mentioned that it was an unhappy marriage, not an abusive one.
Yes.
And they had one or multiple preteen children, right?
Yes.
Now, I would not completely agree with Ridhima on, she said that she would be willing to separate from her partner while living in the same house. I would, if I was in Ridhima's position, I would look out for the best interests of the child rather than mine. Because once, you have an extension of yourself in this earth, responsibilities change. You have, they are not consensually born. You have chose to give a life. So you must provide. That would include making some sacrifices, if the sacrifices are possible to make.
So we still think about parenting as a sacrifice, or some sacrifice may have to be made to our own personal decision. Want to hear from you, Ridhima. What are your thoughts on what
Yes.
Lavanya has said?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, as I mentioned, I've seen unhappy marriages. And the thing is that regular and high conflict tension, right? Like if a child sees regular conflicts between their parents, that is as bad for them as separation could possibly be. It could actually be worse because that affects very negatively the mental health of the child. So in case of extreme high tension conflicts and all, I completely believe that separation is the best option. And plus, now women are financially stable. We have financial independence. So I do not see how separation is a bad thing or how parenthood is supposed to be a sacrifice. Because in the scenario I mentioned, personally, I believe everybody is happy now. There is no compromise because there was no need for compromise in the first place. So
Fantastic, fantastic. We're going to move on to Radhika. Radhika is a homeschool 10th grader who loves artwork and is an avid reader. And I think this is a fantastic question because this is something that we are very conflicted with, because we're all being told that you need to have a career, you need to work, you need to do this, you need to have children. But if you knew someone who was to leave her career and chose and wanted to be a full-time mom, do you believe it happened? And most people will say because of societal pressure, or because she personally found it that she wanted that experience to be fulfilling. Radhika, I'd like to hear your view.
Wonderful question. I completely agree that a lot has been said about this question. So, can I take that the woman in this question is me, and I'm in 2030? Okay. So, when I'm in a time where we as women, I as a woman am empowered enough, I'm opinionated enough, and I'm aware enough about my choices, about my decisions. So, when I choose to be at home, to be with my child, it's my decision, and I have chosen to do so because I feel that parenting to me is a full-time job. I want to experience that motherhood full-time, and I want to be with my child, and it's my decision. There is no societal pressure. There is no way a societal, society can tell me that no, you have to be at home or you have to go at work. It is my decision because I make my own choices. So it's completely my decision that I want to be a mother, a full-time mother. I want to experience life with my child.
Payal, I'd like to hear your thoughts because this is one of the ones that constantly happens, this judgment question. And forget the judgment, but the fact that this is also a very difficult choice for women to make.
The answers in choice, Sukriti, so long as this decision is being made without any societal pressure, as Radhika correctly said, and it's genuinely being made out of the autonomy that a woman has, sure, there's nothing wrong with being a full-time mom. I just, the only thing I'd like to add is that as a society, we have to start thinking about homemakers and how to compensate them.
Yes. And to really, because I think a lot of people now feel, and I because I work with a lot of women, that, oh, I am just a homemaker. It is the most important possibly role that we are doing. I'd like to hear from you, Nishtha, because it's not just a homemaker. It's a very important role.
So that's very important, Sukriti. And as Radhika and Payal both mentioned, as long as the choice is yours, because there's a flip side to it. At times, what happens is once the women, now that we are also equally educated, we start off our careers so well, we tend to put that pressure on ourselves that what if I'm so educated, I can't let my degree go to waste, or I have earned so far and I want to remain financially independent, so I'm going to work, I'm going to do it all. So you put that pressure of being the one off on you. So I think even that needs to be off. And if you choose to be a full-time mother, a full-time homemaker, do that, as long as the choice is yours. And we have had so many people who have successfully done it. Like when I spoke with Reba Chako, she's among the best corporate lawyers our country has to offer. She's among the 13, who's who of legal topmost lawyers in Asia today. And she said, when I had my son, I took a choice to take a break. And I didn't question myself too much. I didn't think, oh, my peers are going to outperform me, because I knew that at that point in time, I wanted to take a break. And when she wanted to enter back into the corporate system, she again did it on her own terms. Like, now that my kid is at a certain age, I want to get back to it. She did it on her own terms. So whether you want to take a break, whether you're going to just pause your career for an elongated period of time, just make an informed choice and just, listen to yourself rather than to people around you. So I think that's the most important bit when it comes to embracing parenthood and choices. Make your own choices, know what suits you the best.
I'm loving it because we're already changing from motherhood to parenthood as the term. As I watch this discussion progress, the rebuttal from you, Ridhima, and I like it. I think we should start using the word parenthood.
Because, here, same with the father. If maybe the father wants to take a break after that legally stipulated 6 months of maternity leave, what if the mother wants to go back to doing her, like full blown career, and the father maybe just decides to take a step back? So it needs to be that discussion. Now, we have kids here. Most of you would have seen the Big Bang Theory, right? So what Bernadette and Howard Wolowitz did in that, like, because she was earning more, she enjoyed her work more, she decided to get back to her job, while the father decided to take a step back for the kids. So that's also very important, normalizing break for fathers or for your partner in that equation.
Very well. Ridhima?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, first of all, I would like to make clear that during this decision, there is no way I am judging the woman, because if it's her choice, then all power to her. But I do believe that at some level, societal pressure works on a micro scale, right? So even if we believe that our decision is completely ours, it's completely our decision, there is always the off chance that it has been influenced by the society's norms in the past, because systems like patriarchy and all, these take a lot of time to completely go away. Even now, there are some elements in households that do support patriarchy. So yeah, I would be a little worried about the decision, but yeah.
No, nicely. You're right. I mean, it will take time to change our mindset. Now, the last question, and you all can answer only in one sentence. Yeah. And so this is going to be kind of like a rapid fire. I'm going to cut you off if it goes over more than one sentence. So the question is, what would you like to see motherhood be in 2030? And we'll start with you, Lavanya. Go.
Ma'am, motherhood should not be actually motherhood. It should be parenthood.
Very good. Anushka?
Parenthood should be accepting and should be judgmental free for me.
Ridhima?
Parenthood should be a consensual decision.
Very good. Janvi? Janvi, you're muted. Janvi, we can't hear you. Can't hear you. No. We'll come back to you after Radhika. Radhika?
The parenthood should be a friendship between parents.
Janvi, can we hear you now?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Parenthood in 2030 should be a choice, not an obligation.
Wow, I love it. I love the fact that, when we're even going through this discussion, and I see after this 1 hour, we've all started using the words choice, parenthood. Payal, you in one sentence, what should motherhood be in 2030? And I'm still using motherhood because that's the question.
It upholds individual agency, autonomy, and looks to bring up children that are respectful of individual rights of every single individual in society.
Nishtha?
Yeah, I think I would just say motherhood, parenthood, fatherhood is equal to pro-choice and no judgment. That's all.
Nicely said. Nitin, over to you, because I think you have some startling facts to share also from the survey that we did of all the students.
Yes. I'm just going to showcase the results of the survey. Very interesting insights have come about. So there was this question on, do you think a stay-at-home mother is better than a working mother for the upbringing of a child? And very interesting views. 40% of the respondents, and we're talking about 100+ respondents here, they said.
And please note that this survey was done only on Gen Zers, that 40% said this.
depends on the living situation of the family. And 27%, that's the next one, said no, Western countries rarely have stay-at-home moms, and children are more self-reliant. So, people support children to be self-reliant as well. To the next question, which is
But go
Indian
back,
parents.
Nitin, I think you one also answer very interesting. 18% said one parent should be constantly present in the early years, most likely the mother.
Right. Yes. So to the question of Indian parents, especially mothers, often prioritize their children over their career, social lives, hobbies, and interests. Do you think that's a good thing to do? So here, interestingly, 43% of the Gen Z still think no, a balance should be struck and mother should be helped in rearing her child as well as maintaining her individuality. And about 40%, another 40% would say it should absolutely be the mother's call without any guilt over the choice made. And that's also what was reflecting in the discussions today. To the question if certain studies indicate that children of absent mothers turn out to be unsocial or delinquent, what's your opinion on this? And overwhelming response, 65% of them said the studies placing the entire responsibility of the mother is completely unjust. The family and society needs to share this failure. So they say that it takes a village to raise a child. And since mothers infuse the feeling of love in a child, if a childhood is deprived of that, one can imagine such kind of failures. So there are a significant percentage, which is 21% of them feel that children must not be deprived of a mother's love and care. Another very interesting question: should abortions be allowed? Yes, but depending on the reason for this step.
But that's very, very concerning, because that reason, and I think that is the question. Whenever you ask for a reason, it always questions choice.
Right, and the balance. Everybody says it's a matter of personal choice. It should be allowed.
But still, 45% want a reason why. 45.
Yes. So there were also some questions. These were objective type questions in the survey. We had a subjective question which said, do you think becoming a mother is an essential part of womanhood? Majority of the responses surprisingly said it was negative. And great number of them believe that the essence of womanhood lies in reproducing and rearing a child. So, so it was a very interesting response. But the caveat was that choice should be respected, which is what we hear today. And the last one change that people would like to see, and most of them talked about how changes need to be brought about in the workplace, particularly about leave, flexible working, and all the support that you can get at the workplace. And then many of them also, the trends of women giving up their careers, the guilt of not devoting adequate time to the child needs to change, is what they said. And also that the father should be taking up equal responsibility.
Right. But some of these survey results actually also tell us that things possibly are not changing as fast as we would like them to. And it gives us actually some kind of a view into the lens of what are the thoughts of Gen Z.
Absolutely. So we are seeing some aspects which are sharply changing, and some of them are not changing as much. But there's something deeper to be explored in the areas that are not changing. Why it's not changing and why is it the same? So we'd like to continue the exploration.
So before we announce the winners, I'd like to take your closing thoughts, Payal, and then Nishtha.
I think that I do want to make a statement about the survey that's done. It's a bit confusing, though. You're talking about choice on the one hand, and yet a whole lot of supporters on abortion seeking reasons from women. So that's a bit confusing and worrying. But all in all, as long as society is moving towards bodily autonomy for women and their right to make a choice on every aspect of it, I think we've moved forward, considering the leader of the free world has decided to move backwards. But
so I'd like to say something on this one, Payal. we had a very interesting discussion on abortion yesterday with the Gen Z. We had another session which was discussing between pro-life and pro-choice. I think that threw open why some of these people may be seeking the answers. The question was also about, abortion at what stage? Is it, pre 20 weeks? Is it post 20 weeks? So I think
Let me just clarify that for you. I think Roe v. Wade talks about the standard 24 weeks. But the question here now in Dobbs versus State of Mississippi, it's 15 weeks. So that's just 3 weeks over, what is it? Barely, how many months is that? I mean, a woman wouldn't even
about 3.5.
know. So, may not even in certain instances know that.
Right.
So, and they're really leaving it, the choice today would be left to states to rule on how you want abortion to be dealt with. So it's not an issue of the gestation or the trimester argument at all.
Yeah, but the interestingly, the discussion yesterday also threw open this viewpoint that do mothers own the fetus? When it may have a possibility of an independent life, life even outside of the womb, which has been proven to happen after 21 weeks. So I think some of that question of being able to abort after 21 weeks, without a reason, may also be justified.
No, but that's a standard across the world. I mean, even in India, you have a certain cutoff period. It's the entire issue is in the first trimester.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I mean, this is because post 24 months, in any case, it's not safe for an abortion to take place. So the entire idea is for the fetus to be able to survive on its own.
Very, very complicated.
It's a bit of a fallacious argument to make, in my view, to say that, now suddenly men are going to decide on, it's true that, the individual rights have to be, but it's a question of whose rights are more important. That's one. And to what level will the state interfere in individual rights? And I want for all panelists here to think today, if hypothetically population was an issue, would men feel good about this if the state were to come and say forcible vasectomy for all men? That's going to suddenly become a touchy issue, right? But it doesn't seem to be a touchy issue when there's an autonomy of women's rights.
Right.
To even come forth and say that a man can have forcible sex with his wife because she's now, given consent at the time of marriage, to have zero autonomy even on whether she wishes to have sex or not. And I think that society has to evolve to a place where men do the heavy lifting on children before they actually are in any place to speak about whether women should be bearing the child or not. I'm so sorry, but I feel very, very strongly about this issue.
No, and one should, because I think this is a very, very important issue of our times. Nishtha, I'd like to get your views also.
Yeah, I completely resonate with Payal on whatever she has said. And I think it's very important that before getting into, any of these hard decisions, like, abortion, or as even I was surprised with the split verdict on the marital rape bit of things. All I'm saying is, especially for the Gen Z, you are at an age when, it's to do with what is the probability of you having to make these choices later on. So being, let's say, very well read up, just researching things, talking, reading, finding role models, like we talked about Priyanka Chopra going for surrogacy without any reason, or Sushmita Sen adopting kids that early on, or, Tabu choosing not to marry, not to have a family, and still being so happy about it, right? Otherwise, you usually have this picture in front of you, okay, happiness for a woman is equal to marital bliss plus motherhood, or a Sania Mirza, when Rajdeep Sardesai in one of the interviews asked her after winning a Wimbledon, so when are you going to settle down? It's like her answer was so powerful, saying, it doesn't matter that we are number one in the world or whatever Wimbledons we may win, but we are not happy and we are not settled until we are mothers. So all I'm saying is that the choices bit of things, like very practically telling you guys, based on all these interviews of, the women that I interviewed for the book or interacted, it's like easy said that done. When you're in that situation, and like as Payal mentioned, the judiciary at the end of the day is a little gray on all these matters currently. And let's be honest that it doesn't seem very pro woman currently, right? It's still, the jury is out there, things are very gray. So it all boils down to how well informed you are before putting yourself in any of these situations. Then of course life will have its own way with things. But as an individual, I think it would really help to be just being well read about things, just reading about role models, life stories, and then just making smart choices at the end of the day. And if you're well read, be rest assured you'll be able to make a strong argument in your support, whatever it may be. So that helps. I'm all pro for just being well read and being smart about these things to start with at a very young age. I think
Very
that goes along.
nice. So Nitin, are we ready to announce the winner? So I mean, I think for me, like I said, my big takeaways, switching the word to parenthood, talking about choice, reading a lot. But I want to hear from Nitin. Who have we selected?
So it was a very difficult one today. I think all the answers were, very well thought out, or they were coming from an area of concern and understanding. So it was really hard. But we've managed to pick our top two. So it's Ridhima and it's Janvi.
Congratulations, Ridhima. Congratulations, Janvi. Thank you, everyone. All of you were fantastic. So, I mean, I must say it has opened my eyes. Thank you, Payal. Thank you, Nishtha. Thank you, Nitin, for an absolutely enlightening morning. And I think I also have a lot to think about. So with that, I wish everyone a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so
for
very
having
much.
us. Thank you.